So I'm going to take a real quick look at the Daily Wire's superhero film, The Hyperions, starring Carrie Elways. Now, if you've seen probably any of my other videos, like literally probably any of them, you know I'm a big superhero fan. Comics, movies, video games, novels, TV shows, you name it. And even more obvious is that I really like the big budget superhero films, but I can also appreciate the smaller stories as well. For example, my favorite film of all time is Avengers Endgame. And that is mostly due to the fact that it was built up through that entire franchise and it was a really big payoff. But also it was just such a huge scale event. But I also really enjoy the smaller stories. Like, two of my favorite comic book films are Logan and The Amazing Spider-Man. And both of those are very grounded, gritty, and smaller stories. While The Amazing Spider-Man did have kind of a world at stake plot, it was still a much smaller story. Compare that to pretty much any other Spider-Man, or hell, Spider-Man Homecoming was a really small story as well, and that one's really good too. So a smaller story can work, but the thing about the smaller stories is, or like, not necessarily the smaller stories, but the smaller movies in general, is that most of the time, because in those cases you need to make sure you have a good script. Because the big budget movies, as much as I love those, even bad ones get a pass sometimes because they have really big visual effects that can distract people. And don't get me wrong, a lot of those big budget superhero films have a fantastic script. I mean, pretty much the entirety of the MCU has a huge budget. There were some that were made on lower budget, but they're all made with like unlimited money. They've got hundreds of millions of Disney dollars behind them now, so they got money to burn. But they still make sure their scripts are good, because without a good script, your movie sucks. And it becomes even more apparent when you have a smaller movie like this, where you don't have a budget of something like Disney, or Warner Brothers, or 20th Century Fox, or one of these huge studios, where they can pump out as much money as they want, because they'll make it back no matter what. And if you have a small movie like this, if you have a bad script, your movie's going to stick out way more. But this movie's really good. And I mean that. This is a very good movie. I saw the trailer for this back when Shut In first came out, because it premiered beforehand. And I thought the movie looked okay. The issue with the trailer was, for me, is that it didn't show very much about what the plot was. It was kind of it was a little hard to follow. I couldn't fully understand what was going on. So the trailer looked fine. But wow, this definitely exceeded my expectations. One of the things I want to point out is, like, yes, this is made on a small budget, so there aren't a ton of big action scenes. But the script really makes up for it. Something I really like in movies, especially in superhero movies, are family dynamics. And that's really what this movie's about. I watched the pre-show for this, and they talked about how it was less of a superhero movie, and it was more of like a family drama, comedy, hybrid thing, I guess. I don't really know how to describe this, because you can call it the drama, you can call it the comedy. Either way, you're probably right. But that is a very accurate depiction. And the superhero stuff is still here, but it's more of a side element. There is one action sequence, and I'll get to that in a bit, but the majority of this focuses on our two lead characters trying to get their Titan badges back. And if you don't know, and the Titan badges is essentially what gives you superpowers, because the scientist, played by the fantastic Carrie Elways, created these Titan badges. Well, he created each of them specifically for someone that can alter their DNA to give them superpowers. It doesn't go into a ton of detail about how that works, but honestly, I don't really care. The superhero movies, it's superhero logic. You don't need a ton of. We don't need a scene. We don't need a midi-chlorian scene. We don't need another one of those. So a little mystery of how it works is fine. And so they're working to get their Titan badges back because, well, someone else wants the Titan badges for themselves. And I don't want to go into spoiler territory per se, but I'll get to spoilers later. More I think about it. So they're basically the entirety of this movie. A lot of it takes place in this the Hyperions museum, and them trying to get their Titan badges. and they need the scientists to come get it for them. And a lot of it, there's a lot of flashbacks and all that stuff that go through like the characters. Obviously, like there are flashbacks to Ansel and Vista as kids. There's a little montage of Vista when she's an adult, but most of it takes place in this museum, and then some of it takes place outside of it, especially with Cary Elwes. I forget the character's name. And with some of his other Hyperions. I said there was an action sequence in this. You would think with this movie is purely more focused on the family dynamic and the characters and stuff, you'd think the action wouldn't be very good. Honestly, the one action sequence isn't that bad. It's an okay action. It's shot surprisingly well. I can see what's happening, and it's done. And there are some creative moments to it. I thought the special effects were going to suck. It doesn't have an overabundance of CGI. You don't need that for this film. But there's one character who teleports. There's always like this kind of silver... You remember the trail that follows Tinkerbell and Peter Pan? Similar looking effect, except it's like pure like white silver-ish. And that happens every time she teleports. And I would say the effect doesn't look very good, but I've seen worse out of Disney Plus. Like... The Secret Society of Second Born Royals had way worse CGI than this, so I'm giving this movie a pass on that. And honestly, they do kind of cheat the system a bit, where they don't always show the effect. Like, it's probably there, but they don't just have it on screen, just have her teleport from one place to another. And it works. I don't think the effect was really necessary, but I feel like they kind of threw that in, because if she just started in one place and appeared in the other every single time, it probably would have felt cheap, it would have felt like a cop-out. So I understand what they were going for here, and honestly, again, I've seen worse effects out of Disney Plus, so this movie gets a pass on that. And like I said, the fight scene is actually pretty well laid out. It's shot, I can actually see stuff, I can see what's happening, and I feel like I have to give this movie praise for that, because there's a lot of movies that can't overshoot shit anymore. But such as even Batman Begins is one of my favorite DC movies of all time. The action sequence is trash because I can't see anything. Or do I even need to bring up Taken 3? Side note, did anybody see Taken 3? If you haven't, don't. But that's exactly my point. It has some of the worst action you'll ever see because you can't see anything because of the shaky cam. This one, it has a little bit of shaky cam, but not to the point where it's obnoxious. And I guess that's a good time as any to get to the directing. This is directed by a guy named John McDonald. And from what I can tell, this is his first directing credit. I believe this is his first film in general, more I think about it. But I was shocked that this was shot very well. Like, the shots are well laid out. The edits are incredibly clever. It has a really unique style to it. I feel it's kind of emulating old 60s and 70s superhero shows like the Adam West Batman or the 70s Wonder Woman. And considering this movie takes place in the 70s, I feel like it works to its advantage. It kind of works with the movie. If it were set in modern day, it would look ridiculous, but it works with the aesthetic. And the actors are all fantastic. We all know Cary Elwes is a powerhouse actor. Like, everybody's seen Princess Bride. Robin Hood Men in Tights is awesome. And he's good even in crap. He's good even in garbage movies like Quest for Camelot. But the other actors are pretty good too. I believe Penelope Mitchell is the name of the woman who plays Vista, and she is really good in this role. I don't know how many of these actors have been in other stuff. I know there's one guy who shows up, who plays Apollo, the guy's name is Apollo, who's in the movie for about 30 seconds. I want to say he's Tanner Buchanan, something like that. I can't remember. If you don't, he's in Cobra Kai. I still haven't seen Cobra Kai, but I've heard it's really good. I've been meaning to get around to it. He was also in He's All That from last year, and now I feel sorry for the poor bastard. I didn't watch that either. I avoided that movie like the plague, and turns out apparently I made the right call, so. But he's in this movie for 30 seconds. Apparently his power is that he can turn his skin into metal. He's basically steel, but we don't get to see that, which I guess is fine, because the one fight scene he immediately gets shot because he wasn't using his power. That was pretty funny. The comedy, for the most part, hits more often than not. There aren't any, like, big laughs like something like Guardians of the Galaxy can get at me, but there weren't any jokes that I were rolling my eyes at. Even when ones didn't land, I just like, okay, that was an okay attempt. Ansel is probably my favorite character because you can tell he's conflicted about being there in the first place. He's trying to think of alternate ways for them to get out of their situation, and you can tell he does not want to be there. And this isn't one of those times where I say the actor doesn't want to be there, which I've said before. You can tell the character of Ansel does not want to be there, but he's still helping her out. And I like that they make Elway's character an asshole. Like, he basically redeems himself at the end, but he's still kind of a dick. And honestly, I feel like that's a lot more realistic than just a complete 180. And they don't try to sugarcoat this either. It's not like you go back into the flashbacks and like, oh no, he wasn't a jerk. It was really like this. This is just how they perceived it. It's like, no. No, he is a dick. He acts like one, but they don't shy away from that, and they know it. And that's the entire point of his character. The villain reveal at the end, I'll get to that in a second. I want to get back to the editing here. There are so many cuts that have such a smooth and unique transition to them. And it's not over-edited to hell like a lot of other movies have had problems with in recent years. You can see everything perfectly, and I like the transitions. It always tries to be creative with one. And so I guess we should also get to the ending, which does have there was one disappointing factor about the film. It was kind of building up a big fight at the end where they would fight the goons, I guess, from the main villain. The villain reveal, the twist villain I think it was clever. I think it was well set up. I think that was really well set up because it was kind of a throwaway character, showed up once, who talked about he wanted to rejoin the Hyperions again, but the teleporting chick, what's her name? Oh, it bothers me, I can't remember her name, but she tells him he can't rejoin. I don't remember exactly why. I think he went like rogue or something. I don't remember, but he wants the Titan badge back, or he wants to rejoin the Hyperions, and she says no. And so that was like the only scene he showed up in. So it was a decent enough setup. So I didn't have a problem with that. And I will give credit. Like the second he took off the ski mask, I recognized who he was. And it isn't one of those things where it's like, who's this guy? Really, the guy who showed up in one scene? It's like, no, it was decently set up. My issue is that they build up this fight, like they get their Hyperion, the two heroes get their Hyperion badges, and then the other one shows up. The fight happens entirely off screen. And I don't mean it cuts to afterward, like as some kind of joke, like they're about to fight anybody, and then you just see the aftermath. No, you cut away, and you hear the sound effects, but you don't see anything. You do see the aftermath of like one guy's like crashed into one of the exhibits, and one got crushed into a wall by a missile that was in there that Ansel had caught when he was a kid. I'm like, these are some brutal kills, but honestly, it would have been nice to see this fight. But no, it was entirely off screen. That was a little disappointing. And the villain defeat was also off screen, which was also a little irritating. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints with the movie, except for the fact that we don't get to see the final fight. That felt like kind of a cop-out. But other than that, this movie is a really good film. If you've got a Daily Wire subscription, you go and watch it. If you don't, it would be worth it just to watch it. I saw it on the YouTube premiere, and I'm doing this review like right after the post show that they had. So yeah, that's all I got for the Hyperions. I'm giving this movie an A-. This was a super fun movie. So thank you all so much for watching, and I was gonna have I usually have a question for someone to put in the comments, but I really don't have one for this one. So I guess I'll see you guys when I review Turning Red and Eddie Adam Project, which come out today by the time you guys see this. So I'll see y'all then. Bye.